Welcome back to Blog Access 101. I'm your host, Young Abachi. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify by searching Blog Access 101. This is episode 250. For starting off a woman in sports segment today with JB Agency's own Jaylyn Brown. How you doing, Jaylyn?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Happy Women's History Month.
Thanks for coming on. Jump right into it. Just give a brief introduction of yourself and career in sports.
Yes. So I'm Jaylyn Brown. I am the founder and CEO of the JB Agency. We specialize in public relations, brand management, community development, and events for clientele consisting of professional athletes, whether they be currently playing or retired. And I've been doing this a long time, a little over a decade. So it's really exciting. We have a lot of big things coming up. We've accomplished a lot of historic, great things as a company, and I couldn't be more proud of the individuals that I've had the chance to work with, the ones that I'm working with right now, and all the fun projects that we have coming down the pipe.
I know you wear a lot of hats in your business. Talk about the day-to-day life of you working dealing with brand management PR with JB Agency.
Yes, so no day is the same at all. Entrepreneurs know that, you know, every day is truly, truly different. And there are some days that you have to ask yourself, like, am I cut out for this? Is this something that I really want to do? And if you don't have the discipline and the reminder to say, okay, this is my why and this is why I started, it can be hard sometimes. A lot of times because your vision was given to you alone. Nobody was in the room when, you dreamt of this dream and you had this idea. So it's important to stay motivated, and you're not always going to have the motivation, so that's where the discipline comes in, and that can be really important as well. But for me, day to day, um, every day kind of looks right now because we're in March Madness. It looks like I'm always staring at the brackets and trying to ensure that I know what's going on because we represent Natasha Kamey, who is an NCAA Division One women's basketball official. And last year she made it all the way to the Elite Eight. So we are praying and speaking into existence that she has another phenomenal year this year working the tournament. So right now that is a very, very high priority for us. The combine just wrapped, the NFL combine. And so we're also keeping an eye on what it looks like for different athletes in that space. And there's a lot of shifting happening in the NFL too. So people are getting cut, people are getting traded, and as abrupt as those things can seem, it's just really important for us as a business to stay educated and locked into what's happening so that we can best assist and be prepared for those moves and those changes, especially with the guys that we work with.
Definitely, March is definitely a big month for obviously college basketball, women's and men's basketball, as well as dealing with the combine, which is big for sports fans. Hopefully, Taj
Yeah.
gets back to Elite Eight this year as well. Who says what got you into working in sports?
Oh gosh, I always love that question because sometimes you don't know that you're going to end up on a certain journey, when you first start or when you look back. And so for me, I grew up in the small town of Haverty Grace, Maryland, and I always have to tell people because they're like, "Oh, is it close to PG County or DC?" And I'm like, "No, I am far from everything. I'm closer to Delaware, but adjacent to Haverty Grace, Maryland is Aberdeen, Maryland." And Aberdeen is the home of Cal Ripken Jr. So I grew up around Cal Ripken Jr.'s family and baseball. So baseball has always been my favorite sport. And when he created the Cal Ripken Jr. Little League World Series, I served as an ambassador and a liaison for teams Mexico, Dominican Republic, Southwest. And so that meant when those teams would come to town, I was assigned to them and had to basically make sure they felt at home. I would go to their practices with them, I would support them at their games, really be that cheerleader for them. And that taught me so much at such a young age. And so from there, I knew that I loved loved sports, but I thought that I wanted to be more so in front of the camera, like broadcasting. But when I got to college, I was hosting a lot of the in-game entertainment aspects, especially during basketball season, which then forced me to be a part of like the marketing meetings and player personnel meetings. And I was learning a lot. And at that time, it was just kind of getting really, really, really important to do marketing campaigns and shoots with the players where they would come up with like really cool calendars and different digital assets. And so for me, I started to learn what was important from a business side of things. And throughout that experience, I interned for different conferences, such as the MEAC, which is headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia. I started volunteering in the summertime in that area with nonprofits and other players who would host their football camps. And from there, my experience and my knowledge just grew immensely, and it became something that was heavily referred. Like whenever I would help a player put together an event or a camp, they would say, who did this? Like who put this together? And the guy would graciously give me the credit and say, oh, it was Jaylyn, like let me connect you. So that has been truly such a blessing for me in my career and my business and building clientele, and proving to them on the spot, what I can do and how I can help them. So it kind of started with baseball, I have to say, but here we are today.
It seems like the reason why you have all those many hats from JB agency came from working all these different duties in sports, and just tied them all to one umbrella, which was smart. Also, are you an Orioles fan?
I love the O's. I love the Orioles so much. However, I did have a friend who coached briefly with the Washington Nationals. And so he introduced me to quite a few people in the Nationals organization. And I have to say, they treated us like royalty all the time. So I love the O's, but I also love the Nationals.
To the evolution of JB agency over the past few years, and how do you target your potential clients and retain current clients?
Yeah, so gosh, that's a really, really great question. The evolution of the JB agency. I'll start with the fact that it wasn't just me initially. It was me and a business partner, someone who worked out of Atlanta, and she really brought an extreme expertise as it relates to working with the student athlete, whereas I had a lot of experience working with the professional or the retired athlete. And it's so funny how times change because at the time, NIL was not a thing at all, and it was really, really important to kind of connect with those who were either becoming professional or transitioning into what would maybe be their second career as a professional athlete. And for me, I knew that I was excelling at that. I knew that that was something I really wanted to dive into. And she was like, I don't think this is for me. So we ended up parting ways, and I, started to stand on my own, which was fine. And we are still very close to this day and help each other whenever we can. But it did start that way. I was not alone. And today, now I would say branding and values are so important to me. So for me, some of my top 5 values would include faith, family orientedness, loyalty, accountability, and being the best. Like being the best is really, really important to me. And kind of in a way that was unplanned, I have represented individuals who have all made history in some way, shape, or form. And to me, when I realized that, I was like, oh, well, let's just continue on this trajectory. I mean, why represent anyone else? If they're going to be working with me and I'm going to be working with them, I expect the best. And I expect for them to want the best out of me as well. So I think that standard of giving each other the very best that we can has been really, really important. I do believe that you shouldn't just work with anybody if what they want and what their goals are don't align with your values and where you see your company going. It's okay to say at this time I don't think that's going to work out. I've been fortunate that all of my clients have really had incredible visions, some very lofty, but I love a lofty vision because it challenges me to work harder in that space. And so when it comes to retaining them, we're very transparent and talk about, what is important for you at this time. Everybody goes through different life stages. And so for some of them, getting active in the community is a huge priority. For some of them, they're growing families. So there are some things that they want to do over other things. And for some of them, they're just starting and they don't know exactly what they want to do. So it allows me to really connect on so many levels with different people when it comes to what they want for their career and what they want their brand identity to be to a stranger from the outside looking in.
Yeah. Also, things, it's great that you brought it up about making sure, make sure your values align with their values. You don't want to just sign anybody just say you got them. Because I see a lot of people,
Right.
even in sports, especially people just starting their own businesses, they're just trying to get clients, which could be a good and bad thing. One, you're obviously bringing clients in that could bring in revenue, but also after a while, could become a headache if both of your like target visions don't align. So sometimes it's best to
Absolutely.
say no, and like you said, like this is not gonna work, and just do it professionally. And also, I liked how like the person you started with at the beginning, didn't work out, that you guys still able to keep that like friendship. Because sometimes a lot of times
Oh,
we do
yeah.
go into business with friends and it don't work. It's like, oh, I lost a friend, but that's definitely good. Hopefully somebody watching this
Yeah.
podcast that had issues with their friends. Hopefully this helps them to reach out and retain that friendship. But where do you see
Yes.
JUC agency in about 5 years?
Ooh, 5 years. Where are we? We're at 2025, 2030. Gosh, the JB agency at that time, I think, we're headquartered in Hampton Roads. I think by that time we probably will have another home base as well. I'm really, really, I have to I tell you, I'm very biased. I'm an East Coast girl. I love the East Coast. And I think that for us, philanthropy is really important. So I do imagine that we will probably have our own philanthropic arm to the agency by that time as well. We're very fortunate that all of the individuals that we work with, that's kind of a standard that we set too, that they have something that they're passionate about when it comes to giving back. So we definitely want to be able to support all of our clients in whatever that means. And I think by adding that element to our agency, we're going to have great success. I would also love at that point to be able to have some sort of facility. And in that way, I think about some of the really nice venues that are kind of like multi-purpose, such as like if you're from the Hampton Roads area, you know how big of a deal the Boo Williams Sportsplex is. And I think there's so much legacy and history with those facilities, and I think it also brings a level of access as well for youth sports. I'm really passionate about youth sports and making sure that students who maybe don't have the access or the means to participate get that access or get that level of mentorship to help them through things. I think I see a lot of times there are opportunities, but maybe they don't know about it. How would they know about it if they don't have internet? Or how would they know about it if, it's just not advertised in their demographic or in their area? So those are the things that I'm really passionate about that I think that we as an agency could do a better job of either partnering with others on or creating something on our own.
Yeah, I definitely, it's great. I talk about philanthropy, dealing with, especially with youth sports, which is obviously a main thing. You want to keep having these youth being able to play sports. As we know, a lot of these youth sports have become private now, which means costs are becoming
Yes.
exorbitant, which not everyone can afford, even the people that like are in the, I guess you could say upper
Right.
class, because they might have 3 or 4 kids that they got to fund, which could become an issue after a while. So yeah, I have to think philanthropy dealing with like youth sports is a big thing because you want to continue to see people play sports and not be hindered from being able to play a sport that they love due to money and finance. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm glad
Mhm.
we're talking about money. So what's your thoughts on equal pay for women?
Oh my gosh, Robert. Wow, we are heating up here. Equal pay for women. Women deserve it all. That's what I'll say to that. Women deserve it all. In this state where a lot of individuals are working from home, and even in this climate where a lot of individuals are getting laid off for unforeseen reasons, and maybe not even so much unforeseen, because we see that it has to do with the current administration. But I think that women deserve it all. We work very hard. We outdo other individuals when it comes to certain spaces and certain numbers. And I think that it's just really important to recognize that women alone have so much power. And even if you want to look at women's sports, for example, I mean, women are the movement and the moment. We are here to stay. Being able to watch the growth from women's basketball just 2 years ago to now, and the revenue that we're bringing in, and even the fact that just a couple weeks ago, the number one watched game on ESPN was a women's college basketball game. So we're doing the numbers, we're doing the work, and it's not just about us being athletes or us being, in positions that feel like they should be led by women. We can dominate in whatever area you place us in. We are naturally resilient. We are naturally going to lead with empathy a lot of times, but also lead in a way that is going to generate results. And so when it comes to women, I think we are always going to win. And if you want winners on your team, you should hire and pay us fairly and equally.
Yeah, I could agree more. Obviously, you started off in sports with dealing with women's soccer back in the early '96. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's still a topic in 2025, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, we've seen the evolution of women's sports. There's obviously some more women leaders in sports as well. Obviously, WNBA commissioners, women from Collinsville, New Jersey. But what I've liked is, but I don't know if you saw the comment recently with Angel Reese talking about women basketball players should be paid the same as men, because like obviously like players are playing above level and less games. But I'm like, she's making good points, and then typical Angel Reese, she got to throw in like a curveball in there. It was like, particularly when some of the women are playing better than some of the guys league, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, it's a spicy comment, but at least it gets people to start talking about it. That's why I love Angel Reese. What
Yeah,
are your thoughts on
it
that
is. It
comment?
is. I listen, I support my fellow Marylander all the way. I think that one of the barriers that we face is just not being in enough of the rooms where decisions are made. And so I
Mhm.
think that we're doing a better job of changing that narrative and changing that as a whole. And I think once we continue to flourish in that way and get enough of us in those rooms, I think we'll be able to, make these changes that are needed. But unfortunately, it's something that takes time, and it takes support as well, because we can scream to the rooftops. I can scream to the rooftops as a woman that women should be paid equally. Women should get this and women should have this. But at the end of the day, we also need the support and allyship of men to get to these points. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to talk about evolution of women's sports over the years, but first let's talk about Unrivaled. I've been enjoying watching the games on TNT. Just what Nafisa Collier and then Brianna Stewie did for just creating that one-on-one tournament, I thought it was brilliant. Obviously, and then obviously helping them pay. And I even thought it was cool that the players of the winners team gets 10,000 apiece, which was interesting because I'm like, they have to they get 10 grand a teammate, which is pretty cool. So with that, hopefully this puts the NBA on notice that maybe they might need to do this one-on-one tournament. But a lot of people talk about egos, which is true because you've seen players like Stewie lose in the first round to Leah Edwards, and like a big-time NBA player do that, he might not be able to come or just start making 10,000 excuses. Stewie took it gracefully, just shook her hand, and went on about her day because it happens. When not against Lee, obviously Leah Edwards was a rookie, but she's a pretty good player. She played well at UConn over the years, and then she had an okay season this year with the Mystics for her rookie season. But yeah, what are your thoughts of Unrivaled, then the evolution of women's sports over the year, from college women's basketball and then other sports as well, softball?
So you cut out when you were asking that question.
Oh, okay. No, I was saying. So, what are your thoughts on the Unrivaled League and evolution of women's sports, and how should like maybe more sports teams, particularly, look at Unrivaled and try to maybe factor that into their sport to like bring more engagement and have more people watching women's sports?
I love the Unrivaled League. I thought when I first saw the launch of it, I thought it was genius. I thought that um, one of the most important parts to me that I think really made a difference was the fact that here's a league that is just as entertaining, that keeps them in shape during the off season, that also gives them an opportunity to play the game that they love here at home. A lot of times we know that women and men sometimes in basketball they choose to play abroad, during the off season, and that can be dangerous. Just depending on the state of the sport and also the state of politics and the state of advocacy. So I think that is such a major asset to have, the Unrivaled League. I think that that made a difference for so many of those players in its first season. And I think the partnerships, the investments, I think it's only going to grow. And I think for the men's side, why not?
You know, gotta stop ducking the smoke. We'll see if they actually get into it. But I feel like it was a great point, especially, with the women not having to go overseas this year, which was definitely big for the issue that BG had faced over there in Russia. So I know she was happy about staying at
Right.
home and not have to go overseas. And I also like talk about earlier, I feel as though players, obviously some men players go over there just because either they weren't good enough for the NBA or the NBA doesn't want them in the league, or um, they just want to continue their career, but still playing overseas where they can still make some money, where they don't
Right.
have to worry about 82 games or things of that nature. But like women's sports, unfortunately, they go overseas to just try to make up, probably because some of these players, like what Caitlin Clark was making 77,000 a year, and you're the number one pick, and looked like they were trying for us to be the focal point of WNBA as a rookie season. You getting 77K a year, that's what making somebody probably like a finance accountant or
Right.
she's making like in maybe their fourth, fifth year, which is crazy. So
Right.
hopefully, these players obviously they're starting to get the traction where more people are you seeing more partnerships with commercial brand deals. So hopefully this leads to them getting more TV deals where they can distribute this money to the players as well, even the top players, of course, as well as either the players at the lower level are still getting paid as well because they're in WNBA, which also could lead to more roster spots because some players that are not on rosters, but I think sometimes like two players in WNBA 2 or 3 years, and then they're out the league because it's just limited teams and limited spots, which is crazy. You can have a
Right.
player with like fourth, fifth pick of 2021, and then 3, 4 years later, they're not even in the league no more. Like, I mean, it happens, but it's like they didn't fall off that bad. It's just limited spots. Um,
Yeah.
so hopefully that leads to more, more revenue for women's sports, and it's particularly obviously WNBA basketball, and lead to these larger contracts. Let's jump down
I agree.
to the your lowest and biggest moment in sports.
Wow. My there are so many great moments. Like I said, I have been extremely fortunate to work with the best of the best. I mean, from Howard White, who's the vice president of Jordan Brand, to Coach Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, to Maya Shaka, the first Black female official in the NFL, to Natasha Kamey, who is on her way to becoming one of the youngest and most veteran NCAA women's basketball officials, to Aaron Rouse, who went from football, and holding the Lambeau Field record for the longest interception return, to going to politics and becoming the first Black state senator out of Virginia Beach. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it's
Talk that
definitely
talk.
like toot toot. Like
Right.
it's hard for me to identify one moment that is so legendary and really that I'm just so proud of, because each one of these incredible individuals, I've had moments with them where we've had to like pinch each other and say, is this really happening? One that comes to mind with Natasha, for example, was last year, May 1st, when her Forbes article dropped. And it talked about her journey as an official to an investor in one of the NBA Africa basketball teams. And then also just landing in Kigali, Rwanda, in Africa together to support the team that she invests in. And, when I think about Howard White, I think about how he pulled me aside to say, hey, you've got it. Like, you've got it. And this is the man who identified Michael Jordan as the key to Jordan Brand. So I'm like, listen, if you say I've got it, can't nobody else say that I don't got it. So I'm just so thankful to every single individual that I've worked with, even with Maya. I mean, we've had so many of those moments together where, I mean, she was just making history. I do remember, for example, a few Christmases ago, she was a part of the first all Black official crew to do a Christmas Day game together in LA. So, gosh, there are so many moments. I'm so blessed and really, really grateful that I know these moments are going to keep coming. I will tell you though, when I think about a lowest moment, I think about my time going to the NFL draft. I've been to the NFL draft consecutively about 4 to 5 years in a row. And in the beginning of my career, I remember very vividly men assuming that I was there as someone's groupie or someone's girlfriend or hookup, just trying to get along and kind of be a part of the after party and all of the hoopla that comes with that weekend of gentlemen getting drafted to the NFL. And I remember I so kindly had to let them know that actually I was the one in charge of the athletes and that I belonged in that space. And I've had quite a few of those moments, even with men that I have represented. If I go somewhere with them and I'm seen with them pretty often, it's, oh my gosh, you guys look so cute together. You are his wife. You've got to be his wife, right? And while I understand that sometimes that commentary is not meant to be harmful, I think it is time for individuals to take a step back before they make a comment like that and recognize that women are dominating in these spaces. And a lot of times we know more than what you assume we know. And I mean, we're there for a reason too. So it's kind of something that I think comes with the territory, unfortunately, that I hope that we can grow out of. It's very difficult being a woman in sports, being a woman in a male dominated industry, being a Black woman in sports, and being a Black woman in a male dominated industry. It's so important to be serious. It's so important to know exactly what you're talking about. It's important to also be authentic, and it's important to have people trust in you and be trustworthy because we just don't live in a space right now where for the average person, seeing me in a room full of men talking football is common. We're getting there slowly but surely, but I've had quite a few of those instances, which I would consider pretty low moments.
Kind of barbaric times where men think only men can be involved in sports, not just the athletes, but reporters and then PR. Hopefully soon we get out of that.
Yeah.
I know you saw it years ago with Cam Newton when he was talking about
Oh,
how it's weird talking rousing women. I was like, yeah, like you can't say stupid stuff
his
like that.
career was never the same, was it?
Yeah, now the funny thing is he's out there doing podcasts, and it's like I want somebody to say the same thing to him. But yeah, but no, I know also to piggyback on what you talked about earlier with like allyship for men, that's why hopefully more players take a page out of Jalen Hurts' playbook where he had the all women staff, obviously agent being Nicole Land, and then you had, so also had Quentin Williams, a big time defensive lineman for the Jets that chose Nicole Land as his agent because he wanted to make history, with her. She had a pretty good book too. when I read it. So hopefully you see like more athletes as well as men in leadership positions as well that stand up and try to bring some young women that they might see that's trying to move up in the field and like mentor them and like actually mentor them and not do no Shaq
Oh yeah.
stuff. But but
Yeah. And I have to say, all of my mentors have been men. They have been men, and they have never been afraid to give me the keys to success. And I have dealt with women in this same industry who were just not as, warm and welcoming and wanting to wrap me up and say, sis, I got you. So I get all sides of it. But I've been very, very lucky to have male mentors who have held my hand and said, look, this is what you need to do, and who have always been, the first to speak my name in a room that I wasn't in yet, or to refer me and things of that nature. So yes, it's important. Allyship is extremely important, and there's room for everybody. There's really, really room for everybody.
definitely is a big field. And it's funny, like it's like you're reading my mind. I was definitely about to talk about like how can women see other women in sports as allies rather than competition. But that's crazy that you start talking about it.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember, from a young age, kind of not being able to understand why, the why, like, why wouldn't we work together, or why wouldn't we? And, from their perspective, I don't know exactly why. Maybe they felt like, hey, I worked this hard to get here. You need to work this hard as well. But everything happens for a reason. And I think it's up to me, because I've had those experiences, to be the difference and be the difference that I want to see, and make sure that I don't, pass down that kind of experience to a young woman who maybe wants that from me. So, things happen, and they're lessons, and they teach you valuable things that you need to know in business anyway. So I think that it's unfortunate, but we're all here, and we're all doing well.
People need to realize like you grow faster when you partner with someone rather than doing stuff on your own. And then also for like dealing with women's sports and just in life in general. A lot of generations, like the older generation, always thought like everything was hard, so now they think we got to work super hard. But I always think like each generation should like lay the groundwork and the pathway to make it easier for next generation to like
Right.
maneuver and like strength from that success. So each generation gets better. But sometimes simple things people try to outsmart themselves, and it's just looking at them like, yeah, it's not that difficult, bro. You're making this harder than it needs to be. But
Yes, for sure.
but yeah, I know you wanted to get into your big announcement, so without further ado.
Well, I'm so excited. As you know, I have been making quite a few trips to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania here lately, and it is because the JB agency has just signed our first NCAA football client,
Okay.
and that is Eric Anthony King Jr. He's an offensive lineman with Temple University football, and we couldn't be more thrilled and more excited. We have a true history of working with, like I said, history making trailblazers, in their own careers and in their own spaces. And I expect nothing less from Eric. He's an incredible athlete, but truly an even better human. And it's so funny because I think about years ago when I was at the draft in Philadelphia, and how this moment has kind of come full circle, that, now I am working with an athlete out of Philadelphia. So it's a very, very exciting time, especially now with the NIL space
Yeah.
flourishing. It definitely makes sense. Back when the draft was in Philadelphia, that wasn't the case at the time. So this wouldn't have been a possibility. And I have to thank Coach Ernest Wilson, who formerly was at Temple, who really made the connection. He was the chief of staff at the time, and it was really important to him for his athletes to kind of understand better branding and the importance of their personal brand as they, all aspire to be in the NFL. But I learned from players and coaches and mentors of mine that the NFL stands for not for long. And so you definitely have to have a plan. And
Mhm.
today, when things are so accessible and you find out things so instantly via social media, it's important to be careful, what you're liking, what you're posting, the brands that you choose to work with, because they have long-term effects, whether or not we know what they are today or not. And so, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing, how Eric performs on the field this season. But I mean, that whole team and the staff has been nothing but supportive. So we're really, really excited to be making more trips to Philadelphia, the home of the Super Bowl champions.
That's right. Go Birds. But congrats. I know Eric's in good hands. But you brought up a good point with branding. A lot of athletes, they just try and get an NIL deal. They just see the dollar signs, like, oh, let me just buy this deal with this company just because it's going to be bringing a lot of revenue. And which obviously, of course, is a good thing because I'm glad that college finally realized you need to stop exploiting these. I mean, they're still exploiting these athletes, but at least they're giving them some piece of the pie now, where some of these athletes making over multi-million deals. But you also need to like connect with brands that obviously like align, like you talked about a lot earlier, align with your values and morals. But also, like in a partnership with other brands, you want to be sure like this brand helps you as well as you help them. Not just obviously you're getting money, you're just posting videos that they want of their brand, and that's not really helping them because you don't have
Right.
any like passion in it. Whereas if you have a company that aligns with your morals and values, that you have passion, that you do videos, and you might even go out of what they do out of their context and add more value to it by adding your own
Yep.
little twist in there, which only happens when you are engaged in something that you're doing rather than you're just going through the motions like, oh, let me just do this so they can
Correct.
cut this check. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we actually had a really good conversation about that yesterday. Consistency, brand alignment, and really understanding quality over quantity, and just looking to the future as far as what that looks like for him. And we're just excited. We're really going to do some great things together. He's got an extremely marketable name, so I'm happy about that. It's going to sound great walking across a stage one day. So we are just really thrilled to be working with him.
Appreciate it. Yeah. This is where we get to the closing remarks. Where can people find you on social media?
Sure, people can find me at the JB Agency on Instagram or on our website at www.thejbagency.com.
Yeah, and then, my final closing remark, like, say a younger girl's looking at this video, like, what would you tell her that she's trying to break into sports, either at college or the high school level, trying to figure out what she wants to do? Like, what advice would you give her if she wants to work in sports later on in her life?
I would say educate yourself. I would say yes to all the opportunities, even if you're not sure yet that that is what you want to do. Say yes to working at the golf tournament. Say yes to working at the hockey game. There are so many different things and opportunities that lie ahead. And I think it definitely gives you an advantage to say that you've experienced multiple environments and you've experienced multiple opportunities. So say yes to the opportunities, and then take your time and making a decision, and make sure that the decision that you make is exactly what you want to do and not what somebody else wants you to do.
Appreciate you coming on, Jaylyn.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. See you.
Bye.